That's where the robbery took place, right? Earl came, pointed a gun at his wife on the passenger side, not the driver's side. The suspect came. Then after that, take the keys, throws it, still on the passenger side. Earl then gets out. This guy's running at that point in time, okay? Gets out to retrieve keys. He's in no protection of a car, no protection of anyone inside at that point in time. That guy left. He goes to retrieve the keys.
Over the fence too.
He sees the guys talking gibberish. Now look, you got a chase sign, tree, another tree, and a fence. This guy's running in that direction. Okay? So Earl comes out. Earls take the keys, and then just goes off and just starts firing. Round. Alvarez family's coming down this way, slow, because they want to come in here. This is the entryway towards the ATM machine, because they were going to make a deposit before they went to Spanky's for pizza. Had to go pay the telephone bill. So at no point in time was their car firing any gunfire at Mr. Earls. So when Mr. Earls is sitting there, there's no assessment of a threat. There's nothing coming at him fire-wise for him to just go ahead and recklessly just take that gun and point it and just start firing away. That's, you got to break down the two events so then you realize the actual intent that he had at that point in time when he was firing upon that family. There was no threat to him and no threat to his property. That's the biggest issue in that case. And then the fact that, you know, when you look at him, I mean, he's not a very credible human. I mean, he had his motion to go ahead and reduce his bond, which he completely lied on. Said there was a mental health issue. Apparently, he's now equipped to go ahead and carry the gun and go ahead and shoot it, aim it, you know, make an honest assessment of when he's at risk.
Let's get you to sit down with the microphone.
Yeah, we'll do that. You ready? Yeah, make sure you stand ready on your, so you can walk through the video. Well, good evening. I'm Rick Ramos. I'm here on behalf of the Alvarez family. I'm going to make a statement, I guess, in rebuttal to Mr. Earls' press conference early on today regarding the circumstances surrounding the shooting that ended in the death of Arlene Alvarez, age 9. So consequently, we have also looked at the evidence, looked at the footage, and this is the factual situation for Mr. Earls. Mr. Earls was, at one point in time, him and his wife, the victim of a robbery at the ATM machine. Mr. Earl then turned into a reckless shooter that ended up killing Arlene Alvarez. How did that occur? Well, at one point in time, and I want you to look at the video because you can see plainly exactly where the actual robbery takes place. Mr. Earl was robbed at the ATM machine, Mr. Earls, and his wife. So the robber came from the passenger side with a gun or a pistol. Mr. Earls is on the driver's side. At some point in time, get a little closer to the ATM machine, at some point in time, the keys get tossed by the robber because I assume he wants to run and not get chased. Mr. Earls gets out of his vehicle from the driver's side to retrieve a pair of keys. At that point in time, his truck is in no threat of being stolen. The robber has removed himself from a situation where he was in fact holding up him and his wife. He's now in a retreating position. Mr. Earls, by getting out of his vehicle to retrieve the keys, which is not protecting his vehicle at that point in time, takes out a pistol and then aims it towards the direction of the robber. Claims one shot was essentially fired by the robber. We'll get to that in a minute. Mr. Earls, from that position, if you play that video and play it quickly, please. He's sitting there, and this is the line of fire that he's looking at. He's looking at one tree, two trees, a Chase Bank sign, and a fence. That's what he's firing at. The family, Alvarez family, is coming into that parking lot by that second tree into the entryway of the ATM machine in order to make a deposit to pay a telephone bill before they went to Spanky's Pizzeria for dinner on Valentine's Day. Mr. Earl is discharging his firearm and his weapon repeatedly in the direction of a robber, which he now has lost sight of. Can't see him. Trees, a Chase Bank, and a fence. At that point in time, there appears the family, which is not firing at Mr. Earl. Mr. Earl is not taking gunfire at that point in time. They're merely just trying to get into the entryway. Mr. Earl says essentially that this was consistent with a mode of operandi. He is not taking fire at any point in time. One shot was fired. I'll show you where that shot came from. This is the still photo. Right there. That's the still photo. If you see that extended, you see his extended arm, that's the robber. That's the pistol. That's the bullet coming out. If you see, that's when he had gone into the gate of the apartment complex or the complex that he jumped over. The bank is sitting, from where I'm standing, over on the right-hand side, westbound. At that point in time, he believes that that car is Mr. Earl giving chase because he lets one round up in the air that hits the warehouse across the street. That bullet hole is still there. The robber then goes ahead and climbs over the fence. So the one shot that was fired never went in the direction of Mr. Earls. The only one that was doing the shooting was Mr. Earls. Mr. Earls was never under an imminent threat or fear of danger for his life, that of his wife, or that of his property after that robber decided to remove himself from that situation. What we do know about Mr. Earls is that he's not truthful and he's not forthcoming. You had a motion to go ahead and reduce his bond. Mr. Earls went ahead and alleged that he had a mental health issue. That consequently, that's another reason why his bond should be reduced, that he couldn't afford it. Well, now he has the mental capacity and capability of not only to carry a gun, but make a risk assessment, discharge a firearm, at least 10 rounds, multiple times, in what we believe is nothing more than a residential working class neighborhood. And he believes that that was the right decision at the time. So no longer is his mental health at issue when it's not convenient for Mr. Earl, or it's convenient for him now to say he's okay. His own lawyer basically said that Mr. Earl made an adjustment when he heard gibberish coming from the robber. Apparently his mental state was an issue. Mr. Earl makes these comments, yet he's also assessing or revealing to us, disclosing to the court, that he himself has a mental health issue. We're not here to play games. We're only here to look at the evidence. You have to break down the sequence of events as an isolated issue. At some point in time, Mr. Earl does not have an absolute right to discharge recklessly a firearm when you are in no threat of your life or that of your property or that of your loved one. That is consequently why this situation is nothing more than a murder, because you cannot discharge the firearm that many times and leave the scene on top of that issue. It's not like you're sitting there and you're waiting for, because you had an affirmative defense of self-defense to yourself and you actually believe that. Mr. Earls does not believe that. And that is why we're here. We wanted to clear the record and let everyone know those are the facts surrounding this issue. And thank you. If you have any questions.
Do police corroborate this story, your version of events, that the one shot fired from the suspect happened after he already fled the scene and it was shot at the warehouse?
I cannot tell you that that's been corroborated by the police. The only statement that I took was that from his attorney, who went ahead and disclosed and revealed that Mr. Earl, that one shot was fired by the robber. That's what Mr. Earl's lawyer went ahead and revealed to us today. And I am telling you that the one shot is right there. You're looking at right at it from the robber. That's the only shot that that robber took. Mr. Earl was not in a position to go ahead and make that decision. That's why we do not permit or allow our clients to make statements when they are under criminal indictments. It's always good for them not to talk, not to say anything, because then things like this occur. I'm sure that law enforcement has what they need in order to go ahead and do what they have to do in this case. We have faith in the system that they are investigating this matter thoroughly and that the ultimate decision will be the right decision for the district attorney's office.
So have you spoken with police about who shot when and where the bullets landed?
I will not interfere or speak with them in regards to an ongoing criminal investigation. What we can do is, if somebody calls here and they need something from us, we'll be more than happy to turn it over. That is what they do, and again, they're going to do their job, and and thoroughly they have done that so far.
How is it that you know that the suspect robber only fired the one time in that location?
Because that is what Mr. Earls' lawyer has disclosed to us today on behalf of his client, that only one shot was taken by that robber. If only one shot was taken by that robber, that's the only shot of a footage that I've seen that entails that robber go ahead and discharging his firearm.
So at no point he was a threat anymore?
At no point was Mr. Earls in imminent fear for his life or that of his property. His keys were even away from his vehicle at that point in time. His car was not going to be stolen. His car was not going to be carjacked. At no point in time did that shooter then decide to come back. He was on his way out. He was leaving the scene. Mr. Earls then took a position where not only did he escalate, at some point in time, this became a separate incident from the robbery itself by the actions that Mr. Earls undertook. And you can have a pistol and a gun and defend yourself, but this is an untrained human being with a pistol in his hands making risk assessments as to when to discharge a firearm into a public thoroughway with a family in a car going to an ATM machine to go pay a bill and subsequently go to dinner. It's murder.
You say untrained because
he doesn't have a license to carry one. I assume you got to take a safety course. I assume somebody got to teach you how to discharge the weapon. I assume somebody has to teach you that you have to fire in a certain direction. I assume you have to be trained in making this assessment. Not only that, you have to have the responsibility that if you have the firearm with you and you discharge, there are consequences. We do not discharge into open general public spaces in order for an innocent bystander to be hit. And that's exactly what happened.
Detail here, but Mr. Earls and Ms. Hines claim that Ms. Hines, his wife, was in the driver's side. She was at the ATM. The gun was held to her head, and that he was in the passenger seat. He got out of the passenger side to get his keys. I don't know if that makes any difference or why.
It doesn't, because it shifts it then what happened was then the robber threw it in her direction, I assume, not through Mr. Earl. I assume he went ahead and took the keys and then threw it behind him. Same scenario. Then Mr. Earl has to get out of a different position, which is the seat that he was in, go ahead and retrieve the keys and actually go around the vehicle, get the keys, has a gun on himself, and then go ahead and feel as though somehow at that point in time he's threatened. He was not threatened at that point in time. If anything, at that point in time, he should have made the assessment that my keys are on the ground and the robber is fleeing from the scene. And the one shot that's fired, according to Mr. Earl's attorney, one shot was fired. That's the only one I see.
Have you or the defense attorneys seen the video from the Chase Bank property, the Chase Bank surveillance video?
I have not, and I will tell you why. The district attorney's office, that is an ongoing criminal investigation. I will not make a comment as to any video or any evidence that they have in their possession. That is their work product. They're assessing what to do from a criminal perspective. And again, we have faith that they will come to the right decision, but they need to see the evidence without anyone interfering with it or touching it. My available evidence is what I see through y'all a lot of times and what's out in social media.
And this is just a still picture that you've seen, or you have a video of this?
That is the actual video that has been out on the news, and that is a still shot of the actual video. If you break it down clip by clip by clip, which we have, and that's part of the clip from the video.
They read a statement today saying that they stand with the family. Does the family have a response to what they said today?
The family has no response to that. The family is grieving. The family is, at this point in time, they want justice. Justice means that this incident is an isolated, broken incident into one criminal act away from the robber. What they're trying to do is blame the robber for Mr. Earl's actions of going ahead and discharging that firearm in a reckless manner to an open thoroughway on an uncommon family that was on their way to an ATM machine. That's what they're trying to do, and that's not going to happen. We have to go ahead and look at the facts for what they are.
Abogado, en Spanish, me gustaría saber un poco que me indicara la respuesta al comunicado que ofreció el abogado del señor Tony Earls?
La evidencia que vemos punta a una dirección diferente de lo que dice el abogado de Tony Earls. El abogado de Tony Earls dice que hubo un disparo de la pistola que vino en la dirección del señor Earls. Cuando vemos la evidencia, lo que vemos es que hay un disparo, pero el disparo fue de el que robó a Mr. Earls y está disparando a una warehouse que está al frente de donde saltó para escapar el robo, el que estaba robando. No está disparando a la dirección del señor Earls. Por eso en este momento lo que estamos viendo es que el señor Earls disparó la pistola 10 veces por lo menos. Y esas 10 veces fueron a un lugar público donde venía la familia a entrar al área privada del público, donde entra para usar el ATM machine de Chase Bank, donde el señor Alvarez tiene una cuenta, ya ha tenido una cuenta por aproximadamente 10 años, la única cuenta que tiene. Ahí es donde él hace sus asuntos de banco. Por eso estamos diciendo que esto verdaderamente no es verdad. El señor Earl también dice que tenía problemas mentales. Bueno, ahora los problemas mentales no lo tiene más. Tiene la habilidad de tener una pistola, accesar una situación y disparar a lo que él cree es una situación donde él está en peligro de su persona, de edad de su esposa y de edad de su vehículo. Por eso estamos diciendo que lo que están diciendo verdaderamente no es la realidad de la evidencia que vemos en estos momentos.
Esa es basada según la evidencia que ustedes han recopilado. Sin embargo, han tenido reportes en este caso de la investigación policial que están haciendo ahora mismo. Se mantiene bajo investigación porque ellos dicen que también las evidencias que ellos han recopilado y hablan de 2 disparos que fueron los que impactaron contra Arlene.
Los disparos que fueron contra Arlene fue cuando Mr. Earls disparó la pistola a el carro o al camión del papá donde estaba Arlene. El carro o el camión del papá no estaba disparando al señor Earls. Estaba yendo verdaderamente a un paso suave para entrar o estaba entrando en la dirección del banco para hacer su depósito. No había disparos que venían de ese camión, de ese vehículo donde estaba esa niñita. Verdaderamente Mr. Earls no podía accesar esa situación para mirarla y ver como si él en ese mismo momento tenía peligro a su propia vida por lo que estaba pasando delante de él. Porque no estaba pasando nada que le dé a una persona razonable en la misma posición de Mr. Earl que actúe como él actuó.
Basado en lo que ellos explican, usted dice que hay un rango de distancia. Sin embargo, ellos mencionan también que en esa distancia que ellos tienen, él se da cuenta que hay peligro y pudiese ser un protocolo del delincuente de ingresar a ese vehículo, y por eso es que él piensa y actúa de esa forma de disparar, porque pensaba que quizás la persona o el delincuente pudiese escapar con ese vehículo que era el que iba pasando, que en este caso pertenecía a la familia Álvarez.
También esa posición es una posición que no es razonable. Verdaderamente, y no es una posición que es inteligente. El que robó ya estaba yendo en una dirección escapando del robo. El que estaba robando no quería venir a donde estaba robando, se estaba yendo. Y lo que ves ahí es que él cree que el señor Earls lo está siguiendo, porque ve el carro, por eso tira el tiro en el aire, para ver si por lo menos le da miedo para poder escaparse. El que está robando cree que hay alguien atrás de él. ¿Por qué? Porque estás persiguiendo, cogiendo fuego y fuego en repetición. Por eso es que está en esa posición.
Por último, abogado, ¿qué viene ahora? Posteriormente de esta declaración que hace el señor Tony Earls y desde esta respuesta, ¿qué viene ahora desde la parte legal?
La parte legal ahora está en la demanda la pusimos contra el banco Chase. El banco Chase, lo que dijo el señor Earl hoy fue que ha visto este señor en otros videos, o lo que dijo el abogado, como si es alguien que reconoce como si ha robado a otras personas antes en ese mismo lugar. Bueno, por eso ya por lo menos les puede dar usted la habilidad de ver que este lugar, el Chase Bank, es un nido verdaderamente de criminales. Y esto que está pasando, esos actos criminales, son repeticiones diariamente en este mismo lugar. Por eso pusimos la demanda, porque no han hecho nada desde que se murió Mary Jane y se escaló los eventos criminales, se murió, eventos criminales siguieron que mataron a la niña, y todavía en ese mismo momento Chase Bank estaba adentro de una demanda que nosotros le pusimos por la muerte de Mary Jane, y todavía no hicieron nada para poner el lugar en una posición donde las personas se van a sentir bien yendo a usar el banco.
Con respecto al señor Tony Earls, en este caso, la policía sigue realizando investigación, obteniendo evidencia. Desde la parte con Tony Earls, ¿tienen que esperar ustedes cómo sería ese proceso? ¿Esperar que la policía recopile las evidencias completas para determinar exactamente, o cómo sería?
Pues claro que sí, siempre hay que esperar a que la ley haga su trabajo, y después pues nosotros seguimos lo de nosotros.
Can you play the video one more time and explain to us from there? I'm going to shoot the screen and tell us what it is that we see, please.
Okay.
Okay, so
All right, so
give us
this
a
is,
second, hold on, before you start playing. Just a
stop.
second.
All right. Y'all ready?
Yeah, go ahead and
All right,
tell us what it is that we're looking
Right.
at.
So what you're looking at there, this is the premises of the Chase Bank over at 2900 Woodridge. That is the ATM machine that you see right there on your screen. If we can move in a little closer, please. And that is essentially the area that you see there where the actual robbery took place. According to Mr. Earls was on the passenger side. His wife is on the driver's side. The robber comes with a pistol to go ahead and commit the robbery. The robbery takes place. The keys are then tossed by the robber, I assume not through Mr. Earl, but away from the vehicle. The robber then proceeds to go ahead and start to leave the scene. Mr. Earls gets out of the passenger side, goes around the vehicle to retrieve the keys. At that point in time, Mr. Earls is not in imminent fear for his life. The robber has removed himself from the robbery. There's no carjacking because the keys are gone. And the only thing Mr. Earl is retrieving at that point in time, as far as property is concerned, are keys. So subsequently, Mr. Earls, through his lawyer, claims there was one shot fired by this individual robber towards the direction of Mr. Earls that then drew Mr. Earls to go ahead and respond and shoot back. So please just hold on to that thought for 1 second. As you can see, these are the grounds. So Mr. Earl is shooting in the direction of a robber fleeing through a Chase Bank sign, 1, 2, 3 trees, standing trees, big trees, and you see a wooden fence on the back end of the property. The robber is running eastbound. The family's coming westbound to enter the premises, which they're slowing down to enter. Mr. Earls is discharging his firearm from the ATM machine standing alone portion that you saw on the video in the direction of the family now that is coming to the premises to go ahead and use the ATM machine, which the father has an account at. The one shot that you are going to see is, if I could have my still picture, please.
Can you play that video real quick by itself without stopping it? Just play the whole thing.
Yes.
So we can have it, and then
Sure.
we'll go to the still picture.
Take it over the fence too.
Okay. Then the next one is the still shot, right?
Can you
Yes.
just give us a quick second to put the mic on this?
And the next one is, the next photo is the still shot. So Mr. Earl's attorney represented to us today that there was one shot that was fired from what Mr. Earls is able to ascertain. That is the one shot that we have evidence of that the robber discharged his weapon. That one shot from the robber came as the robber had now run all the way down Woodridge away from Mr. Earls and away from the ongoing bullets that were coming in his direction. Okay, he went ahead and he goes into this area here to jump over the fence. He believes that car is giving chase to him because he's taking fire, turns his gun and shoots towards that warehouse. There's still a hole at that warehouse if you go there today, and that's the robber going ahead, and you see that his extended arm. What you see is the bullet coming right out of his gun at that point in time. That's the only shot and the one shot that we're able to obtain or ascertain from the video clippings that and the evidence that we've seen so far. What we do know is that Mr. Earl initially claimed at his bond reduction hearing that he had a mental health issue, mental issues, which means he could not meet that $100,000 bond. But apparently now Mr. Earls is telling us that he has the capability not only to have a gun in his possession, but to make a risk assessment with his gun and to discharge responsibly his firearm onto what he believed was an imminent threat to himself, his wife, or his property. What you can see is that the evidence itself does not point in the direction of Mr. Earl's story or his account of what actually transpired at 9:30 on Valentine's Day when Arlene Alvarez lost her life. What you're seeing is a reckless shooting with a man that was not trained or equipped to actually discharge a weapon. Yes, you can have a gun, but you can't recklessly discharge a weapon onto an oncoming public thoroughway into an incoming vehicle that's coming onto the premises of a bank when you are not taking fire by the vehicle that you're shooting at.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
What road is this here?
That's Woodridge.
That's Woodridge?
That's Woodridge, and what you see is if you take that finger of mine right there and you follow it, the bank is right down in that direction.
To the
So
right.
this is the back of like Home Depot?
That's the back of Home
Okay,
Depot.
That's not Woodridge.
What street is that?
Woodridge is when you come off 45 and you make that right.
Then you're right.
In front of IHOP, and then you make that other right.
Then you're right. And which street is that?
I don't know the name of it.
All I know is that robber came
Yeah.
running straight down.
So the bank is back this direction.
That's right. The bank is right here. When I walked it, the bank is right here in this direction, right? So he's running away from the ATM machine, goes
Okay.
right back behind that wooden fence, and he's coming right down this way, coming right down this way, coming right down this way. Sees this hole, comes right in here, takes that pistol, discharges right towards that Home Depot, and then jumps the fence.
So we could have possibly had two victims, innocent victims.
Easily.
Because he shot at him thinking
Easily.
it was Mr. Earl.
Easy.
So you could have possibly had two innocent victims. Wow.
Easy.